Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome to the 200th episode of I Heart Animation. I started this podcast as a video series back in 2018, just doing short video reviews of different animated movies, sometimes with guests, but never more than like 10-15 minutes max. But that didn't last long because doing I Heart Animation that way was one of the things that made me realize I much prefer podcasting to making YouTube videos. And by 2019, I'd pretty much completely switched formats. I've done occasional short reviews for YouTube since then, but they're few and far between. I'm pretty bad at keeping up with milestones, so I didn't even realize I was so close to 200 episodes. I've had big milestones pass by unnoticed on my other podcasts, and obviously I never even noticed when I hit 100 episodes here. Though, according to my spreadsheet, the 100th episode of I Heart Animation was actually the history of Disney's Alice in Wonderland back in 2022, which is actually quite fitting given that Wonderland Wednesday was my first big show on YouTube. But I guess I don't pay enough attention to the numbers on the spreadsheets. Plus, the one I keep for I Heart Animation, I had to go back and recalculate what counted as an episode after I decided to end I Heart Movies and go back to just I Heart Animation last year. I started with the original video series and then added every animation or animation-adjacent podcast that I'd done since 2019. But I guess I was too focused on the titles and not the numbers because somehow I did not notice that I was almost to 200 until I went to update it last month. So I figured what better way to celebrate this milestone than by going back to the very beginning and revisiting the movie that I made my very first I Heart Animation video on back in 2018, Makoto Shinkai's anime masterpiece, Your Name. For that first episode, I invited Rachel Wagner to send me a short review to add to the video. She was the one who introduced me to Your Name and was one of the biggest reasons why I got into YouTube in the first place, so I thought it was only fitting that she'd be my first guest. So today, I figured that I should have her on to talk about Your Name properly and do a full-length podcast talking all about this amazing film. Thank you all for joining me all these years for 200 episodes of I Heart Animation. Here's to 200 more. So thanks for joining me on this one. It's kind of a last minute thing. I just suddenly realized I'm almost to hit 200 episodes of I Heart Animation, so I figured the best way to celebrate would be to go back to the beginning before I even had turned this into a podcast and actually do a podcast about Your Name, which was the first episode back in the day.
Absolutely. I always love talking about Your Name.
So when did you first see this? Because I first saw this because of you. I don't think I would have seen it other than you hyping it up, making me really want to see it.
So I got a screener link to see it in 2016. And so I watched it at home in 2016, and it immediately became my favorite movie of the year for that year. I wish that they hadn't done that late, kind of Oscar push, because I think it would have had a better shot in 2017 than it did in 2016. But nevertheless, that's what they did. And so, I definitely hyped it up to a lot of my friends because I did have as my favorite movie that year. And it was just something that was really, really special. I think I actually first heard about it from Cell Specs. I think she reviewed it and raved about it over on her channel. So then I was like, ooh, gotta check this out.
That makes sense. She watches a lot of anime stuff.
Yeah.
That was probably before I even had seen her channel, so I don't think I had seen anyone talk about it except for you.
Well, that makes me happy. I like to be the leading missionary for Your Name. It makes me feel like my life had some kind of value, purpose.
Well, this is a very good movie. It really is one of my favorite films now. Yay. Definitely probably my favorite anime.
Yeah. I feel like it's such a rich movie. You can watch it again and again and again and again, and I have.
I think I've watched it like a total of 3 times in the last couple of days.
And you can get new things out of it every time you watch it, which is fun.
I feel like the first time I watched it, I didn't really understand a lot of what was going on, but that didn't affect how I felt about it. I loved the movie, even though I was confused by parts of it. So even if a movie the plot is semi-confusing, but you still love it, it's a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple leaps that when I first saw it, I was kind of like, I don't quite get that, but I just kind of went with it, because I was enjoying it so much in the characters and the story. And but yeah, that makes it kind of a more rich experience and I've talked to quite a few people that they even didn't like it the first time, but then when they gave it another shot, they liked it much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that way.
Have you watched it in both English and Japanese?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I
Yeah,
did
and
that this time.
oh yeah, I think the biggest, it's a pretty good dub. It really is. I think the biggest difference for me between the sub and the dub is that the dub, I think it just changes the music a little bit,
Yeah.
and it makes it doesn't quite fit as well. I much prefer the music in Japanese than the music dubbed. So it's actually not even the actual voice actors that I think make a big difference.
I think there is more than one version of the dub because the first time I watched this, the words were in English, but the music was in Japanese. But
Mm,
then when I bought the DVD, it was all in English. The
yeah,
songs, everything was in English. So I think there's more than one version out there.
yeah, I would believe that.
And I think I prefer the one that I don't own, the one that I first saw back in the day with the English words and the Japanese music. Although if it could be perfect, it would be the Japanese actors if they could do it in English.
Mm,
Because I like the voices in the Japanese language version better than the English voices.
mm. Yeah, it just well for the music, there's just a certain like cadence and rhythm
Yes.
that Japanese language has that's just so different from English
Yeah.
that it kind of sounds like they're rushing.
Yes.
When they're saying it in English, it just doesn't quite fit.
Yeah. And I don't think they even tried to make it rhyme. I'm not sure, but it seemed like they were just doing like a direct translation.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun because I actually got to interview the Radwimps people for rotoscopers back in the day.
Mm.
So that was fun. That was like my one chance interviewing rock stars.
I really like the music for this. They're
Yeah.
really
Oh,
good. I'd never heard of Radwimps before this movie. They're just so good. I'm so glad whenever they're in another movie.
yeah.
I also just love the name Radwimps. That's such a
Yeah.
great name for a band.
They just obviously have such a connection with Makoto Shinkai that they just get it. They get what he wants, they get what he's doing, and it just really draws you into the scene so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. It's so good.
Hmm. Yeah, I talked to him and I asked, I said, what is the difference in your process between making a traditional album and writing a score? And they said, a film score has to embody a specific world, which makes it a slightly different experience from producing an original album because we have to challenge ourselves to come up with music that best matches that specific scene. And also, when we making music for film, we can use any instruments we like, and it's our job to choose the most appropriate ones for the suitable music. So it's kind of fun.
Whatever instruments they use, it's so good. Like there's
Yeah.
just a sound, like a quality to the sound of their music that you don't get from anywhere else.
Yeah. It's a really special part of the movie, no question.
Yeah.
And for Weathering with You as well.
Yeah,
So
Weathering with You, I need to watch that again. I watched it once and I don't remember liking it as much as Your Name.
no, it's not as good.
I'm kind of wondering if it'll be a case where I appreciate it more on a second viewing, like with Your Name.
I still like it. It's not as good as Your Name. It's it's kind of bonkers because like Makoto Shinkai is like an ultimate romantic, and maybe that's why I'm so drawn to his work. And he in never so much so than in Weathering with You. Like
Mm.
literally, the end of the movie is the entire city is flooded. Everybody's homes are destroyed. It's all, but our two are still in love, so it's okay. Like that, that's a happy ending for Shinkai, which is just hilarious.
Yeah.
So
I haven't gone back and watched a lot of his stuff before Your Name, but the ones that I've seen since, he has a lot of stuff to do with like natural disasters.
yeah, nobody can do rain like Shinkai. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Well,
Absolutely
not even just
beautiful.
rain. Like, I mean, with even the disasters are amazing to look at, but like
Yeah.
anything, like everything he does is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Like the opening shot of the movie with the comet. I mean, it comes back throughout the film, but like the comet going through the air, the like the rainbow trail,
Yeah.
and then you've got the clouds over the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
It's just there's something about his work that it's just gorgeous to look at.
Yeah. You could put on Your Name and turn off the sound
Yeah,
and just to have it be like a screensaver. You'd love it. It would be amazing.
you really could. Like, this is one of those movies where it's like every frame is a work of art.
Yeah. And it just makes me mad that the Academy has such a bias against anime. That, I mean, unless you're Hayao Miyazaki, he's the only one that I guess is allowed to be recognized. Because I certainly think that Your Name, Suzumi, and Weather Review, that they all deserved to be in the conversation at least.
Yeah.
And Mamoru Osada, his films, Toshiki Kon, his films. Now, all these great anime directors, nothing. 'Cause it's like it's frustrating.
What won the award, the Academy Award this year?
So 2016, I think that was Zootopia.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean, I love Zootopia, but Your Name deserved it more than Zootopia.
yeah, yeah. It was Zootopia.
I mean, that's fine. Zootopia is a great movie. But Your Name is just like,
Yeah.
it's a masterpiece. Like, Zootopia, I've watched a couple times since it came out, but it's not an absolute favorite. I know it is for some people, but Your Name, like, I could watch this anytime. And like I said, I've watched it a bunch of times in the past couple of days. Every time I never got tired of watching it to make all my notes.
The thing that's just maddening is that if they had waited until 2017 instead of rushing it, they would have had the big competition of The Boss Baby and Ferdinand, movies that nobody has thought about since.
I don't think I've never seen either of those. So
Yeah. So, I mean, they would have had them because 2016 was actually a pretty strong year for the category. There was
yeah.
Moana, there was Zootopia, Kubo and the Two
Oh,
Strings.
that's right. That was the year
Uh,
Moana and Zootopia came out at the same
yeah.
time.
Yep.
I mean, I would have given it to Moana over
Yeah. Oh,
Zootopia.
yeah. Me too. Or even, I don't know, maybe even Kubo. But I mean, I like Zootopia.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
all of those are great movies for completely different reasons. But like, I feel like Moana is of the three, Moana would be my choice. Kubo may be
I
a
mean,
close second.
if the following year, if if it didn't beat Boss Baby and Ferdinand, I think I would have like had an aneurysm. I just don't think I could have handled it.
Uh,
But oh well. That's the
yeah,
Academy. That's the thing about the Oscars is they seem really important when they're happening, and then everyone forgets them immediately.
that is true. Like, I kind of hate how important the Oscars are to people because they never seem to go to the most
Oh no.
deserving.
I what I'm doing with my friend Elise, we're doing a top 25 of the last 25 years series. It's pretty fun. And I think I only have three Best Picture winners on my list, on my
Hmm.
ranking. So that says something. 25 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense to me. I'm not like a movie reviewer like you are. So
Hmm.
I've not seen all of the like big winners, but like if the big winner is big enough, I will have seen it, but it seems like they rarely even nominate movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
I
No,
was so
it's
shocked
true.
when Wicked got nominated. It's like there's a movie that I've actually seen
Yeah,
that's in the conversation that might actually
exactly.
win something.
Yeah, the only ones I have that won Best Picture in my top 25 is Return of the King, Parasite, and Slumdog Millionaire. Those are the only three.
And of those, the only one I haven't seen is Slumdog Millionaire, but that's on my list eventually to see. But the
I
others are
do love
great.
it. I do love it. I do love it. So, well, let's talk about Your Name.
Well, I do want to talk about the plot, but before we get there, I don't want to end on a bad note, so I want to get this out of the way first. There's supposed to be a live action remake, so I thought
Uh,
we should talk about that and then actually talk about the movie. Get
I
this out of the way first.
I don't think this is happening anymore. I
I wondered
really
because it's
don't.
been so long. Like, I feel like it was in talks when I first did the original review back at the beginning of my channel almost. And it's now how many, like 7 years later,
Yeah.
and still
So
nothing.
we haven't heard, I don't think, any updates. What was the last that we heard because they had a director.
Well, the last update, at least on Wikipedia, was October 31st, 2022.
Okay, so it's been 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Almost 3 years. And the Carlos Lopez Estrada was going to be directing, and then Lee Isaac Chung was going to be directing it. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem. And there was talk for a while that they were going to make it they were going to move it over to America, and they were going to make it a Native American instead of Shinto, instead of Japanese, which I just feel triggered by the whole thing.
I like in doing my research for the movie, like, I don't know, like, you'd have to really change a lot if you're going to take it out of Japan and put it in America.
Yeah.
And I don't like I'm not an expert in either the Shinto religion or Native American belief systems, but is there a way that they could like it feels like if they try to do that, it'll be shoehorning in something
Yeah.
that doesn't really exist, and it's not going to be the people who are actually part of those belief systems doing it the way
Yeah.
that it was with this movie.
Yeah, it'll only be like body swap switching.
Yeah,
That's it. I mean, and that's you lose so much of the heart and soul of the story and
like
why they have this happen to them to begin with.
exactly. So I just don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical that it'll happen at this point. I just feel like
I kind of hope it doesn't.
I hope so too. I hope so too, because that just sounds atrocious.
Yeah. I mean, I'm over the whole live action remake thing anyway, so
I'm beyond depressed about this year. With that How to Train Your Dragon. It looks so terrible. And then you have Dean Du Bois saying, "Oh, well, I didn't get to do everything I wanted to get to do, and now's my chance to do it right." And that just triggers me.
I'm just I'm imagining him sitting
So
in a
mad.
chair in a dark room with a spotlight pointed on him, and behind him is the studio exec with a gun to his head.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
Frustrating.
yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
But and it just seems like such a foolish business decision for them to do because like none of these anime to live action have done very well, and even the Disney ones are starting to be less profitable.
Mhm.
And it just I just don't see that there's a market for. I don't see how you make this movie on the cheap in live action, and I just don't see that there's a market for it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that it's a studio decision and they're like, I want this. This made money. Make us some more money. Go. And it's
Yeah,
not somebody who actually has a vision that wants this to be made.
yeah. So let's hope that it doesn't get made. Uh,
Yeah. Well, let's actually talk about the good movie.
okay.
So obviously, for anybody who I would hope that anybody listening to this would know what it's about, but this is a body swap movie. And it's unique in the fact that the two people doing the swapping do not know each other. They don't live near each other. And it's kind of a mystery as to why this is even happening that you kind of unravel as you go. And then in the middle, like one thing that I love about this so much more than any other body swap movie is the fact that there's, well, we'll get there, but there's a huge twist halfway through that completely changes the film. And it makes it so much more than just your average body swap comedy, like Freaky Friday or whatever. Like I love Freaky Friday, but this is such a good movie. It like takes the trope of swapping bodies and just elevates it to something so much more than just, oh, two people swap bodies and hijinks ensue.
Yeah. Yeah, there's really so much, and that's one thing that I think so fun about the movie is that you really get a little bit of everything. It's
Yeah.
funny, it's romantic, it's dramatic, it's got even some action at certain points, it's spiritual.
Uh-huh.
It really is a movie for everyone.
Yeah. It really is. And
Yeah.
I like that it's two people that don't know each other because that really adds to the mystery. And at the beginning, they kind of just assume that each other is dreaming. Like they don't really think that this is real until things start pointing, like people are starting to recognize their behavior and they start realizing, no, this is actually happening.
Yeah. And I just love the characters so much.
Yes.
Both Taki and Mitsuha are so likable
Uh-huh.
that you're rooting for them the whole way through. And I like how the movie kind of gives you little clues throughout of kind of what is happening, and then you watch it again. That's why it gets better every
Yes.
time you watch it,
Yes.
because then you notice, oh my gosh, I didn't even see the band there, or I didn't even notice how he uses imagery like opening doors or different things that, oh, okay, he's trying to say something there, that I think makes it just a really rich experience.
Even the clues about like what is happening, like if you pay attention when you're watching, like I wouldn't have known the first time I was watching it with the twist halfway through, but like everybody's talking about the comet, but they're only talking about it with Mitsuha or with Mitsuha's
Yeah.
body, like Taki and Mitsuha's body. But
Mhm.
nobody in Tokyo is talking about this comet,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is a huge clue when you're watching it again, but it's not something that you notice the first time you watch it.
Yeah. Hmm. It's true. And when I love the whole idea of, there's this whole philosophic concept of the other, and what when we sort of recognize another person's humanity, we will fight for them. And
Hmm.
what the bad things in the world do is they try to take away that response. They turn the other into the same, is what they call it in philosophy. So instead of a person being a human and we have that response, they're now the slave or the, whatever, fill in the blanks, any way to dehumanize a person. And that's what people try to do. And what's so moving about Your Name is that Taki, he literally walks in the body of Mitsuha,
Hmm.
and he understands her and he knows her, and he is compelled to save her. And it gets to a point where he doesn't even know her name.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know who she is, but he feels it and he knows it's real. And it's just like this yearning, and you just feel for him so much.
Yeah. The characterizations are just so well done.
Yeah. And we just think about like how easy in our lives is it to kind of dismiss people.
Hmm.
But if we walk in their shoes, if we have empathy for them, how different our experience will be and how much harder it is
Hmm.
to do that. So that's one thing I love about the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I think in watching it for the podcast, probably at least three times total, because like I was watching it at one point, I was like literally watching it simultaneously. Like I had the English dub on the TV and I had the Japanese language with subtitles on my computer, and I was like going back and forth trying to like watch both to see differences and stuff. And I feel like in doing it that way, not just because of that, but I feel like I've gotten such a better appreciation for so much of it that I didn't really understand. And some of it, I will say, I don't fully understand a lot of. Like anything to do with the Shinto religion, I understand it better now, but there's so much that you could learn about the
Yeah.
religion that a lot of it I'm sure is still going over my head. And some of what's happening, I'm not sure if it's to do with the Shinto religion or if it's something that they have come up with for this film. Like the twilight, like the magic hour as they call it in the English dub.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I'm not sure if that's part of Shinto religion, but it wasn't something that I understood, and it took me watching it now, like going back and forth to fully understand different bits of it that was actually
Hmm.
important. Because like you get it later in the movie, but like since I would never watch the movie like back to back, I didn't really catch things. There's a scene
Hmm.
towards the beginning where Mitsuha is like it's the day after the first switch, and she's like, memory is a thing in this. Like they don't always remember everything that's happening, and it has to go on further and further before they fully remember. And she's trying to figure out what happened because she knows that something happened, but she doesn't know what. And she's finding messages. But in the background, you have the teacher talking about Twilight or the magic hour. And it's like it's kind of starts as the lesson and then it's like fading away as she's like discovering the messages from Taki. So I didn't get that the what the teacher was talking about is so important. It didn't, it was until I was doing this podcast and like trying to like fully understand the movie that I got that this scene is like actually important because the teacher says something about like the barrier between worlds blur and you might see something not human. But like for the purposes of this story, it's more like the barriers between times get blurred.
Mhm. Yeah. And this is something that has been done repeatedly through her family.
Yes.
We know that with, and that's the important of like her going through with the whole ritual with the
Uh-huh.
sake, and that's giving a piece of herself into this spiritual. I mean, and that's why I think that spiritual people tend to enjoy Your Name better than non-spiritual people, because there is a certain amount of spirituality involved in it. You know, that there's a spiritual connection between Mitsuha and Taki, and it has to do with them literally sharing parts of themselves with each other.
Hmm.
But the grandma knows about it. She's totally aware, and she knows that the switch has happened. She's following it. I'm she's had her own switch, I'm positive,
Yeah.
in her childhood, so she completely understands this is not new to Mitsuha's family.
Yeah, because she has well, more than one moment where she talks about dreaming. And I think it with her too, it's like she knows about it, but she also can't fully remember it.
Yeah.
Like, because she talks about it like dreaming. Like again, like the memory thing, it's important kind of that they don't remember. And I don't think the grandmother fully understands what's happening, but she knows that something's happening. And she knows that Mitsuha is not Mitsuha.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's at least family tradition that I think people in her family have this
Well, she is
tradition.
like, I'm not an expert on the Shinto religion, but I think she is some kind of spiritual leader, and her
Yeah.
family, like it's a,
Well, they are maidens of of the family shrine.
yeah. So
And
they're in charge of this.
yeah. And these bands are what connect the generations to each other.
Yeah, because you have the whole scene of them like making the ribbons.
Hmm.
And again, this is something with the Shinto religion. The grandmother is talking about a fire 200 years ago, and all the documents related to the meanings behind the traditions are lost. But it's still important that they continue them, even if they don't
Yes.
fully understand them. And like the first time I watched this, I was confused because like this is so outside of Western culture and Western religions, anything that we would have been raised in. But at least from what I could have picked up with the research that I've done for this podcast, Shinto is like some people who practice it don't even really consider it a religion. It's more customs and traditions.
Yeah. And it's a lot about ancestors and connection with the past and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I guess it never really bothered me that much because I always just was like, it's just magic, like it's just what they need to have. The point is the human connection. Like I think that's why I said every time that I watch it, since it kind of adds layers because I see different parts
Yeah.
and in the tradition and but at a certain point, I don't need everything to be explained to me. I don't need everything to make sense. There's not a suspension of disbelief that I have a problem with in this movie
Uh-huh.
because the main core concept of these people saving each other and loving each other and the whole concept of our humanity and who we are and saving this town is just so beautiful. And it's also, like I said, funny and romantic and heartfelt. And there's so many other ways that if I have to write off a few things as mysticism or spirituality, if you want to say, I'm fine with that. It's not a problem for me.
I think that's why I fully enjoyed it, even though I didn't understand it. Because for me, I tend to dislike when I don't understand something. So this is like one of those rare movies that like I didn't really understand what was going on, but I didn't care and I loved it anyway.
I mean, I guess if you think about it, like a story like Moses, I don't understand how he got all those plagues, and I don't understand how he parted the Red Sea, and there's
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like there's certain parts of every tradition that are just part of.
I think that's one of the things like well with anything Moses, anything like Western Christianity related, like that's the culture we were raised in. So
Yeah,
it doesn't confuse me, even though if I really stop and think about it, it would probably confuse me. But it's one of those things where it's like I'm watching this, I don't understand what's happening, but I understand that this means something to someone else. And even though it is not tailored to me, I appreciate that they're not forcing it to be understood by me. And I appreciate it on all the levels that you're talking about, the humanity and like this being another culture that even though I have no ties to, I appreciate getting a glimpse into that culture.
yeah,
And then for the podcast, like I'm actually looking into it and trying to understand it. And I feel like in doing that, it gave me a bigger appreciation for the Shinto religion, even though I'm not
yeah,
an expert and I don't understand a lot of it still. I feel like in thinking about different things that I was learning, I was like, I can see more of this in other anime that I've watched. And I think in future, I will have a bigger appreciation for other anime because of this movie, because I understand it a little bit better with all the
yeah.
research that I had to do.
I agree. Yeah, me too. I don't know. I just feel like it's about the yearning of the human soul, which anybody can connect with, no matter
Hmm.
where, what your beliefs are, or who you are. You can connect with that.
Yeah. Well, I think a little bit of what I was learning about Shinto is that, like, they have a specific deity that, at least for them, sort of resides in this shrine, but
Hmm.
not everyone in the Shinto religion or traditions, because some of them don't believe it's a religion, follow this deity. Like, this is specific to this area, and there are different ones in different areas.
Yeah. Well, even different families and
Yes.
people in Mitsua's life kind of make fun of her for participating and for being the maiden of the shrine and for doing the dances and for doing the she's kind of but she does it because of her grandma and even something like the sake is kind of looked down upon, but you know that's a major way that of course Taki and Mitsuha then become connected again after losing
Hmm.
that contact.
I think the main thing that I was reading that unites all the beliefs under the umbrella of Shinto is the belief in Kami, Kami, which I think is what they're focused on in this shrine. It's a supernatural entity. And like, I think that can be anything from like ancestors to things in nature. But with this one specifically, they're talking about musubi, which means connection or unity. And that includes time and connections between humans. But the grandmother's like trying to explain that all these different things that are musubi, which includes like the ribbons that they're making.
Yeah.
And then that goes into the sake, which becomes a major part towards the end, which you don't really understand at this point. This is one of those things that you don't really appreciate until rewatches, how important the sake is.
Yeah. Because he understands what is happening and he needs to find a way to connect with her. And that's a literal way of connecting. And so that's yeah, how they're able to do it.
Yeah. So I really liked that the first half of the movie is getting to know them and them getting to know each other through having to live each other's lives and kind of making each other a better person or giving them a better life by doing things that the other can't. Just like making them better people over the course
Mhm.
of this
Yeah.
occurrence that they don't understand.
I love Mitsuha at the beginning when she's just like so excited about going to cafes and
Yeah.
eating fancy food and Tagi's like, what are you doing? All of that is so fun. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, like it's you start out just enjoying this comedy and then it takes you to somewhere a lot richer.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Because, like, halfway through the film, you get the big reveal that Mitsuha, for Taki, she's dead. Like,
Yeah.
because of this comet that was in her time, like, they're 3 years apart. He is in 2016, she is in 2013. And you don't realize that till halfway through the movie, that they'd not just been swapping bodies, they'd been traveling in time.
Yeah.
And where he is, she has died 3 years ago, which is
And
like
but
a mind-blowing twist. I
yeah.
loved that.
And I think that most of us have felt like a pull that we can't understand. Like not everything in life makes sense. And I think especially that's gonna why I think spiritual people appreciate your name more than non-spiritual people. But when you have that pull that you can't explain, but you know is real and you understand it, and that's what he is feeling. And so he when he finds out, he's so devastated when he finds out about this comment, and then he's determined to do whatever he has to do. Somehow he's just going to go. He's going to go find it. He's going to go there and somehow and he drinks the sake and that's how he's able to do it. But it's that yearning I think is really important.
Yeah. But I also like that, like, they're not I mean, they're not like the main characters, but like all the people on the edges of their lives, the people that they interact with, their friends. I
Yeah.
like that their journey kind of brings different people together because you have his friends. I'm not sure of the one guy's name, but Miss Okudara and
Yeah.
one of his other friends. Like, it's not ever said for sure, but it's like implied that they get together. And I think Makoto Shinkai even said that in his mind, they were engaged or married or something.
Oh yeah, they're definitely engaged. Yeah, I felt that at least.
And then you
Yeah.
also get a scene towards the end where he sees Mitsuha's friends also engaged. He doesn't he doesn't know them, but he feels something. Like he remembers them but
Yeah.
doesn't know why. Obviously they don't recognize him. But I really liked that you have those scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, aren't they even in town to
Yeah, they're
yeah,
like planning
wedding.
the
Yeah, they're
wedding.
planning their wedding. Yeah, yeah,
And I think that that happens
yeah.
because, like, when the whole comet thing happens, like, the way they structured the end, like, you don't fully know right away what happened because you're following them, and then he's back in his time and she is back in her time and trying to finish the job of like warning people to get them out of town, and there's no definitive answer as to whether it worked. Like she runs in to see her father, and like there's a whole thing with her and her father, and he's not the greatest person, and you kind of get the feeling that he doesn't believe what she's talking about. And then you see the comet hit, and then you're back with Taki, and you don't know for sure until he has like the voiceover, and then he sees them, and then you kind of like get the picture like, oh, so it worked. So the people were saved because he's remembering kind of being obsessed with the town, but he
Hmm.
doesn't know why. He can't remember her anymore.
Why do you think that he doesn't write his name? He writes "I love you" on the hand and not his name.
I don't know. That's one of the things that I haven't been able really to figure out. Like because he talked about like they need to write their name so they don't forget because they know that their memories are not permanent of these because they forget things along the way.
Yeah, I think he does it because he knows that that won't mean anything and it won't stay there if it does. It won't last, but that love again, because you gotta Shinkai is the ultimate romantic. That love will always be there and never go away. Never forget the love.
Yeah, that
I
makes
think that's
sense.
why.
I think one of the scenes that hit me the most was like in that scene when he wants them to write their names on each other's hands, when she disappears, for whatever reason, that moment is like I get chills. Like, and I'm not one who's like really affected by movies like that deeply. Like, I'll get invested and I'll be interested in what's happening. I'll be excited about things, but like to have something that even just gives me chills,
Yeah.
that's like rare for me. But like every single time I watched this, because I watched this multiple times in preparation for this podcast,
Hmm.
every single time, the moment she disappears and the pen drops,
Oh,
at I get chills. Like
yeah.
just I don't know what they did with that scene, but I think it's the way the music cuts and then just like it freezes and then it shows his face like frozen. Like it's so well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love it too. And you just feel you just go on such an emotional roller coaster watching this film.
Yeah. That whole
Oh,
scene where they like actually meet each other on the crater outside of the
yeah, and he gives
shrine.
back her band
I
and
love how that scene is structured. It's so
writes,
good.
I love you. And then he becomes obsessed with with this village and this comet. And he knows that these people were saved, but he doesn't know why. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know what's going on. And then he sees Mitsuha on the train. He knows she's important. And then they pass on the stairs. Oh, so good. I know your name. Oh,
I love the way that they end this like asking each other their name like at the
yeah. It's
same
got to
time.
be the best ending to a movie like ever.
Yeah. And it's
It's
one of
up
those
there.
things where it's like I feel like when I was a kid I would have been like that's the end, I want more. But like I don't
Hmm.
know, it just seems like the perfect ending. Like I even though you do want more, it's still a perfect ending.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit surprised that I mean, you got to hand it to Shinkai for not doing either like a spin-off or something more, and at least being tempted to kind of go more into this world. They do have a cameo of Taki in Weathering with You.
I read that, but I couldn't remember where it was. Like I don't remember
Yeah,
if I even noticed it.
or just like a cameo. He's just in there, but I would be curious to. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd want a sequel because I don't think we need to know more
I don't think so either,
about
yeah.
Mitsuha and Taki. But I would be interested in a spin-off, possibly, like maybe about her sister, or maybe a prequel about the grandma, or
Ooh,
something
that's a
like
good
that.
idea.
Yeah,
That would be interesting.
I would like that. That would be fun.
Yeah, because like at least for me, like thinking about what they could do with the sequel, it feels like a sequel just showing what happens after they meet again. It feels like they would just be forcing it because like there's no natural
Like,
continuation
yeah, like
other than just like a rom-com or whatever, and that's not
yeah,
the
or what
same as this movie.
are they gonna like have Taki Mitsua's kid also switch but like it just be a
Yeah,
repeat? That
yeah,
wouldn't be very good. So I think he's smart to not do it, but
yeah.
but
Leave you wanting more.
I would be kind of curious.
Yeah, I would be curious, but unless he has like a brilliant idea for a
Yeah,
sequel, I don't want a forced sequel. I feel like we get too many forced sequels these
yeah,
days, and
no
I like
question.
I like a good ending that leaves something open to interpretation,
Yeah,
but still feels like a satisfying end.
yeah. And I guess originally the movie was referred to as Magic Hour.
Oh,
That
okay.
yeah, that there is that point where the bands where the magic happens.
I
And you
think
see that in the movie. I can see that.
yeah,
In
I think
Twilight.
Your Name is it's such a perfect name for a movie though. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
It's
I
like
agree.
Magic Hour sounds, I don't know, that sounds almost like too Western of a title.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
Just calling it Your Name because that's basically the last two words of the movie.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I love it.
Mhm, mhm. It is a really, really special movie.
Yeah.
I people ask me what's your favorite movie, And usually I say It's Your Name. It's my favorite movie.
It's definitely up there for me. Like
Yeah.
I have a terrible time saying what my favorite movie is. I always default to Fantasia because I've loved it the longest. Like
Yeah.
even as a kid, I loved that movie for whatever reason. So I always just default to that. But like if I make a list of favorite movies, Your Name is definitely on that list.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if I'm talking about like the best movies ever made, then I might include, then I might have like It's a Wonderful Life or, something like that. But just as far as my favorite, my personal favorite, I think it's Your Name.
Yeah,
Yeah. So good.
yeah, definitely. Okay, well, thanks for joining me for the 200th episode of I Heart
Yay!
Animation.
Congratulations.
I couldn't
Congratulations.
believe it when looked at my, because like I have a spreadsheet where I'd like try and keep track of things, and I was adding some stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm about to hit 200 episodes. I need to like do something for this.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, well, thank you for having me and getting to talk about Your Name. That's
Yeah,
funny that that was your first.
it was. I did it because like it was around the time when this came to America. Like I think
Yeah.
it was 2017. I don't think that the episode,
Did it come by you? Was it in theaters? Because it
no.
got a pretty good rollout.
If it did, it was before I was even aware of it. Because
Oh,
like I think this review that I did was in 2018 because I started my channel in 2017, but I didn't start iHeart Animation until 2018. So I think that was
oh,
about the time it was getting released, probably on home media. So I watched it then. If it came to a
that's
theater
too
near
bad
me,
that you
I
never
didn't
got.
know that it existed.
I'm just jealous of over there in the UK. They got to see it in IMAX.
Oh,
I would have loved to see.
oh
Just,
yeah, all those scenes of like the comet flying through the sky, and
yeah.
I love the shots like over the city with the clouds. Like he's so good. Like everything
Yeah.
about his landscapes are just
Ugh,
amazing.
yeah. Absolutely.
I would love it if he would do something like Fantasia, just
Ugh,
music and scenes. He would do such a great job
yeah.
with something like that.
Oh, yeah. I would love that so much.
Yeah,
I would love to interview Makoto Shingai someday.
yeah,
I interviewed Tom Moore. I interviewed Nick Parks, great animators. I would absolutely love to. That's a
that
bucket
would be
list. That's a
awesome. Yeah,
dream.
yeah.
That's a dream.
Maybe someday. I think it'll
Maybe.
happen.
Maybe. Yeah.
You've interviewed so many other people. There could be a time in the
Yeah.
future.
I interviewed Gintz, Silbados, who's the director of Flow, which might win the Oscar.
That would be awesome. I keep hearing, like, Flow is
Yeah.
another one. It never came near me, so I haven't seen it. I need to watch that.
Yeah. It's available. You can watch it almost anywhere. It's on Tubi. It's all over the place now.
Oh, it
So
is? It's on Tubi?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I
Yeah.
definitely
Pretty
need to see
sure.
it then.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That was going to be one that even if I hadn't seen it, I was just going to buy the DVD because I've heard so many good things. So many people have recommended it, and I just know that I'm going to love it.
I think you'll love it because I think you're an animal person, right? You like
Yeah,
animals? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah,
love
yeah.
cats. So,
Oh, yeah, for sure then.
yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to talk about this amazing movie.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll be back for more in the future, but until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they'd like more from you?
Yeah, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over the place and at the Hallmarkies podcast. And recently, on Rachel's Reviews, I interviewed all the animators at Sundance. So they're shorts, animated shorts, directors, creators, and those were all on Rotoscopers as well. But so got all those. I've got tons of animation content on my site, so check it out.
Yeah, definitely check out some of that because you talk to a lot of cool people.
It's fun.
Okay, well, we will see you next time for something else.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to I Heart Animation. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.